Right, so I felt as though I've owed people a part 2 to the Clockwork Orange video. I do apologise for the delay in finishing this part 2. What I wanted to do, right, I'm going to talk about one instance of a change, and I'm going to talk about the extra chapter that's at the end of some editions and how I kind of like it. So the initial incarceration is completely different in the book than it is in the movie. In the movie, Alex was brought in, he's made hand over all his possessions, he's made stripped naked, he's anally searched, and it's all done in kind of a classic Stanley Kubrick, like clinical, sterile kind of directing style. Kind of highlights the bureaucracy of the whole process for these people. Alex is smiling affably the whole time with his usual big grin, which I think shows that he's not prepared at all for what's about to come. Now, in the book, essentially there's no direct counterpart of this initial scene, but there is a scene that takes place at that point in the story. He's brought into a super overcrowded cell, and one of the people in there tries to have it off with him, and the rest of the cellmates beat the shit out of the guy. The guy slowly dies throughout the course of the night while moaning out for help. Both scenes are showing how terribly people are treated once they are incarcerated, just in different ways. One is about the uncaring nature of the institution itself, and the other is about the kind of inhumane conditions that these people are put in once they are in the system. Similar themes, but just slightly different than one another. This is a very serious segment of the video. I'm going to talk about sexual assault in both the book and the movie. Both the book and movie have been criticised for seemingly trivialising rape down to a shock value tactic used to add edginess to the story. Even less charitable critics have called it glorifying sexual assault, and I don't think either of those perspectives are invalid. The book, however, has a slight bit more nuance than the movie, and that's one of the rare instances that is the case. Not only does Alex receive a dose of his own medicine quite early in the cell, it's implied that he's sexually assaulted by Dim when Dim becomes a police officer. In the movie, they try and drown him. And in the book, Alex essentially says, I won't describe what happened. So they leave it up to your imagination, which is, kind of frightening in its own way. It's like he gets 2 instances of comeuppance in the book, kind of quite early after he sexually assaults people himself. So in the movie's defense, right, it does show Alex's juvenile correctional officer groping him within the first 20 minutes of the movie. It's really uncomfortable. On to something that is a bit easier to talk about, the ending, okay? The film and early editions of the novel end in a jubilous, joyous way in which Alex is seemingly unchanged by the entire experience. It is a darkly comic tale that implies that some people are just psychopaths, and regardless of any amount of rehabilitation, cannot be changed. In fact, rehabilitation as a practice is diminished to nothing but attempts from politicians and civil servants to seem as though progress is being made. And the activists against it all are belittled to having the same callous goal of using Alex's suffering to prove an ideological point. He goes outside and runs into the old drunken Irish guy that he had bet up earlier, so that's just another instance of karma, of the past coming back to haunt him. The extra chapter, right? As far as I'm aware, the extra chapter was written for later editions due to controversy surrounding people taking the ending as an endorsement rather than a satire. The extra chapter is much maligned by fans of the film and many fans of the novel as well. The general opinion would be that it shows the Ludovico technique as having actually changed him after all, thus undercutting the point that a person's nature cannot be altered by outside forces. But I think that is an uncharitable reading, which is interesting because people who criticize the book are reading it uncharitably, and people who like the book are also reading it uncharitably. Ending chapter follows almost the exact same structure of the first chapter. Alex is out on the town drinking, thinking about drugs and sex and violence, which hammers home to me the point of the previous chapter when he's having visions of frolicking with naked ladies at the end of the last chapter, and now at the start of this chapter he's continuing to have those types of urges. That doesn't seem to me like he has been changed the way people say that this chapter character implies. And he isn't having the unnatural Pavlovian breakdown he used to have at these impulses. To me, he seems fully back to himself. However, a meeting with Georgie seems to change everything for him. One of his old henchmen now has a wife and they own a home together. Alex protests they're a bit young for that, but Georgie disagrees. His wife even laughs at Alex's pattern of speech, which Georgie has dropped. Honestly, right, this interaction with Georgie seems to traumatize Alex more than anything else that's happened to him throughout the story. He leaves that encounter and decides he needs to get his act together. It's a moment that matures him. Seems unrelated to anything in the prison or the hospital. It's a personal experience. At least to me, is a very relatable scene. Seeing an old peer proceeding in life beyond you causes some self-reflection. The beautiful part about it is Alex's decision of like, okay, now I'm going to get a wife and have kids and, you know what I mean, buy a home and all this stuff. It's not actually shown. It's just shown that he has decided that he would like to do that. So you're free to imagine that the next night he went out and took some Drencrum and went on a crime spree. I think it just adds a little bit of room for interpretation, which isn't really there if it ended on the chapter prior, and isn't there as much at the end of the movie. But I don't think one is better than the other. I think they're both satisfying conclusions that serve the same thematic purpose, regardless of anyone else's shallow interpretations. I don't know, the whole thing of Alex still being out on the town, wanting to do the same things, and then changing his mind and thinking he needs to get his life together, I think that is like indicative of what seems to be the entire point of the book and what the priest keeps saying. I think of that as the author insert. The priest is him because he was a very religious man, and the priest keeps talking about, you need to decide to do these good things. You need to have free will. You can't cure a person of their sins by forcing it on them. The person has to want to be a good person. He wants to change at the end of the book, and he doesn't want to change at the end of the movie. It's the same, funnily enough, as Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, where both are great. There's not a bad. I don't think one is better than the other. In the book Fear and Loathing, it ends with a lot of like dour self-reflection. It's a movie of Fear and Loathing. He's driving off into the sunset and there's music blaring, and it doesn't seem like he's learned anything at all. And it's similar with Clockwork Orange. Clockwork Orange in the movie ends where it seems like he's the same fucking guy. There's been no consequences. He doesn't give a shit. But the book adds more room for, well, what does this character actually do after that? How do they live their lives after they realize that this isn't an entirely productive use of their time?